everyone. Good afternoon. Hope everyone managed to get some lunch. Start with a few apologies. Tom always puts me in the hottest room in the building. Also, this is not quite as polished as I was hoping to, because the Prime Minister decided this was a great week to announce grammar schools. It's going to be quite busy. Also, I don't have a clicker, so I'm going to be awkwardly standing by the mouse as I click through this. But I'll try and make it interesting. So, what I'm going to talk to you about this afternoon is not grammar school, that was this morning. I'm going to talk about Teach First's new model, but the biggest changes that we've made to the Teach First program as a teacher trainer program since 2003 when the program started. The reason we wanted to change the program, the reason that we've done all this work, was not because we think our program isn't any good. That is an important thing to state up front. We've been rated outstanding twice by Ofsted. We have 3 independent evaluations that have all been positive about the effectiveness of the program, and 90% plus schools who work with us say they recommend lessons in next year. So it's not that we thought we had a failing product. We have a very, very good training program, but we also thought, always better to improve from a position of strength. And when we looked around the world, when we looked at the best research, when we talked to our participants and ambassadors about their experiences, we knew there were things that we could do better. So back in 2004, we set out a program that has led to the point that we're now in a position to publicly talk about what we're doing. So what I'm going to talk to you over the next half an hour or so, what research did we do, and what did I actually learn about research methodology from doing that, because that's quite interesting. What did it say about recruiting teachers? Because we did look at not just the training, but also the selection of teachers, and what could we learn about that, and how should we do that better? What does it say about the training? And then what changes are we making as a result? So hopefully, some of this at the end is about us, but hopefully a lot of it will have general applicability to other training programs, all rec programs, and so on. So you won't go and read that, it's very, very small. This is a very small slide. Basically, this says we did a lot of research over about a year and a half. A lot of what we did, especially around about the training itself, was quite internally looking and was quite qualitative. And I been fairly sceptical about qualitative research myself. We didn't really have a choice, so we had to do a lot of this research like that way. And I actually learned a lot about how it can be done well, and how much you can learn from really good qualitative research doing this project. For instance, one of the things we did was do 30 case studies where we looked at a participant who'd either withdrawn or come very close to withdrawing from the program during the first year of Teach First. And interviewed them, but also did interviews with 2 of their support personnel around them. So we were able to build up a nice case study of their experience. So we weren't just taking their perspective as being the accurate one. We then coded everything that all of those people said, and we were able to turn that then into essentially a quantitative study looking at the big themes that came out of that. So it made me realise that there's some value of that kind of research, that if you do interviews right, if you do enough of them, if you get your case studies right, you can learn an awful lot. We also did use whatever quantitative data we had to do analysis, so we looked at our assessment centre scores, we looked at some progress data we collected about pupils, we looked at the people who withdrew and the school characteristics and everything we could get from our quantitative data. And we did a lot of literature reviews, so we looked at what there is globally around how prediction of who will be a good teacher, and whether we can predict who's going to be a good teacher through a selection process. And we also looked at what there is out there on teacher training and professional development. So I'm going to start. This presentation is based around something I have clickers, so I'm just going to make it easier to talk about. So what did the research say about recruitment? So first thing to say, and this is a fairly well established finding, is there's very little relationship between formal qualifications and impact of teachers on pupil attainment. And when I say impact on pupil attainment, these are all American studies, and and they're all value-added studies. So they're all essentially looking at the value added by a teacher, by a group of teachers who've had different experiences on US pupils. That means they're not as applicable as if they were UK studies. We just don't have the level of data to do those kind of studies in this country. So this is very reliant on US research. But nevertheless, it is a very comprehensive finding. There's very little relationship between, say, having a master's degree or having a particular type of qualification and being an effective teacher. Eric Hanishek did the biggest meta-analysis on this. Looked at 170 studies, 86% of them found no difference in terms of impact on attainment. So that's a bit of a dead end. There are, however, studies that show there is some relationship between cognitive ability and subject knowledge and impact on pupil attainment of teachers, of selected teachers. One of the sort of best studies on all of this question of whether you can predict who will be a good teacher is by Jonah Rockoff and some colleagues. We looked at a whole wide range of different characteristics to see which ones would seem to be predictive of skill as a teacher. And one thing that did come through a bit, not massively so, was cognitive ability and subject knowledge. And interestingly, this was subject to qualifications and cognitive ability. We do see that in our data as well. So Becky Allen did a bit of analysis for us on what happens to people who've been through a program who stay in teaching. And interestingly, there's really no difference between people who got first-class degrees and 2-1 degrees in their trajectory after they complete the program. We're not looking at people attainment, we don't have the data. We looked at things like salaries and so on as proxy for teacher development in the system. There's no difference when it comes to degree. When it comes to the kind of university you went to, there is a difference. So people who went to Russell Group universities do get paid more in their third year than people who've been to other types of universities. So those are both loose proxies. So Russell Group is a very loose proxy for cognitive ability. But I know I went so. But we think we're seeing some of what people like Jonah Rockoff found in the States. So the qualification doesn't tell you very much, but there is something you can learn from cognitive ability. And particularly subject knowledge. And one of the most interesting US authors on this topic is a woman called Heather Hill, who's done a lot of work on subject knowledge, particularly. So not, and what she's found is like pure subject knowledge, like having a PhD in physics and knowing lots about advanced physics isn't particularly useful. But having a sort of knowledge of the way the pupils will interpret the subject is very, very valuable. So having a sort of innate sense of the types of misconceptions that pupils will make about subjects is very valuable, rather than sort of pure advanced subject knowledge. So there are some interesting distinctions around that. But definitely there's something around cognitive ability. One of the most interesting things in the research is there's absolutely no relationship between extroversion and pupil attainment. So, and this is particularly interesting because there is a relationship between head teacher judgments about teachers and extroversion. So head teachers will judge extroverted teachers as being better, but they don't have more of an impact on pupil attainment. So this is a really big trap for people who are selecting teachers like we do to fall into, where you say, okay, well, you look great, you're going to be amazing in the classroom. You're really outgoing, you're really extroverted, you're going to blow them away. Actually, if you look for that, you're going to miss what's really important. And that's been a really important thing for us, actually, is to move away from we've never consciously looked at extroversion, but I think some of the tests that we use and the way we do assessment have unconsciously picked up on that. It was a really important lesson for us that extroversion doesn't have any relationship with pupil attainment. The other thing I haven't put here, I don't know if any of you were in Laura McInerney's talk earlier, she talked a lot about perfectionism and conscientiousness. There's no relationship between conscientiousness and being an effective teacher either, which is quite interesting in the context of what she was saying, that actually if you're too conscientious, it can make you a bad teacher because you essentially panic and fall apart.
So how do you measure conscientiousness? How do you measure conscientiousness?
So this is in the Rockoff study, and they...
It's not your teach first findings.
So this isn't
sorry.
This was from the Rockoff study. We don't measure conscientiousness. So that's interesting. There is, on sort of character side though, there is a relationship between self-efficacy and impact on attainment. So people who believe that they can have an effect, essentially, and this is linked to, but not the same as, resilience, which is a slightly different concept. There is a relationship between those character traits and effectiveness. Again, none of these relationships are massive, but they're sort of significant. And this one's quite interesting. The Angela Duckworth did a study on Teach for America participants around self-efficacy and resilience, and did find that it had quite a big effect. And it is something we have always looked for in our assessment centres. And I think we should show that was probably the right thing to do, and that people who really believe they can make a difference are more likely to be effective, especially in more challenging classrooms. So off the back of this kind of research, we did tweak our selection processes. We have made some small changes. But broadly speaking, I think actually they showed us that we were probably on the right track when it came to selecting highly effective people. And certainly the research we did looking at who was effective on the programme, who was more likely to withdraw, didn't suggest that we were selecting the wrong people in any way. Whenever there was a problem, it usually wasn't because of the individual, because of their innate characteristics, it was because of something else that was happening to them externally. So we haven't made huge changes, but I thought it would just be interesting to set out that research, because I think having one of my criticisms of certainly not all, but some school rep programs, is they're very bad at selection. They can be quite good at training, but they make the mistake of looking for perfect or existing all-round teachers when they're doing their selection of trainees, and that's not what you should be looking at when you're selecting trainees. You want to be looking at characteristics, values, maybe some cognitive ability, but you don't want to be looking at whether they can already teach, because if they can already teach, you don't need to train them. So I thought that would be useful to run through. So what did the research say about training? And this is much tougher. There is, from the US anyway, a really strong now set of quant papers on whether to predict who will be a good teacher through selection. There's much less stuff on what makes good training. It is very hard to do sort of really rigorous RCT type studies on training. I mean, by definition, training programs have different selection criteria. You cannot easily randomize between different types of training, and even if you did, you would be very hard pressed to work out which bit of that training had the positive effect. So here we were more reliant on experiences of people who've been through the program and what they told us and what our schools told us about those experiences. We looked a lot at what literature is out there in terms of what we know both about people who've written on effective teacher training programs, but also what we know from the psychology of how everyone learns, how children learn, and this is how you apply that logic to teacher training as well. So it was a bit more of a mishmash of different sources that we were trying to bring together to try and create a coherent set of arguments. But out of all of that, and given that I don't have all that long to talk to you, we picked out a couple of big themes. The first one is around theory and practice, and this has probably been one of the most, one of those really frustrating debates in education that has been around for decades and doesn't really go anywhere. It gets very stale. Do teachers need to essentially a theoretical base for what they're doing? Do they need to sort of understand the intellectual side of teaching and then sort of through that discover how to be an effective teacher in the classroom? Or do they need to essentially learn a set of techniques, practical techniques, that will mean they can go into the classroom and be effective? And theory, frankly, teaching isn't that complicated, so why do you need so much of it? And the criticism of a lot of teacher training courses has been that they're over-theoretical. Equally, a lot of people who work in teacher training are very critical of highly practical approaches that they think de-intellectualize the profession. And there's something in both of those arguments. This really is one where there is a bit of a false dichotomy. You need both theory and practice. There is definitely an intellectual and theoretical element to becoming an outstanding teacher, but there's also a very practical element to becoming an outstanding teacher, and you need to have both. The question that's important is not which one do you have, but when do you do them and how much and in what sequence. And that's what we've really been very focused on. And we were very influenced by the work of Linda Darling-Hammond, who's probably the main American expert on initial teacher training. She's written a lot about this. This is a quote, a lot of you won't be able to read it from her, so I'll just read it out. It's impossible to teach people how to teach powerfully by asking them to imagine what they have never seen or suggest they do the opposite of what they have previously observed in the classroom. No amount of coursework can by itself counteract the powerful experiential lessons that shape what teachers actually do. And her argument is essentially you need to very closely interweave and sequence the theoretical and the practical. And there's not all that much point going into a lot of theory for people who aren't yet essentially teaching, who aren't having lots of classroom experience, because they won't be able to understand how that theory affects their work until they're actually doing that work. It's also, of course, really matters what theory. Theory is a very big word. It can mean a lot of different things. And if you look at teacher training providers both in this country and around the world, it means very different things. For some people, it still means a fairly old school model of very focused on Piaget, Vygotsky, and Dewey, and the history of education research. Theory can also mean much more contemporary theory from cognitive science and so forth. So you definitely need both. You need to really think about what the practical experiences need to be, what the theoretical experiences need to be, what order they need to go in, and where people's focus needs to be at different stages of their experience of learning. Next up, because of the importance of practice, and practice really does matter, and how you experience what you've learned in the classroom really matters. The role of the in-school mentor is absolutely crucial. For those of you who aren't massively familiar with the current Teach First model, every participant does have an in-school mentor, as well as somebody who supports them from Teach First and a university, and 2 university teachers who support them as well. And what we found when we talked to participants, especially those ones who had a difficult experience, a small minority, but they're the ones we really wanted to talk to, was that really it was the lack of support from the school that really drove their disengagement from the learning and from the programme. And that in-school mentor who's working with them potentially every day, certainly every week, is essential to their ability to think about what they're learning, either in some institute that we do at the beginning of their training, or in the training days or sessions that we do through the time that they're on the programme. It's the in-school mentor is so important to digesting that and helping them to really understand it and use it in their practice. Some schools are brilliant at this, some schools are really bad at it, lots of schools in between, in terms of how they are giving it time for people to do mentoring well, for training mentors in school, and there's a real divergence of quality in the schools that we work with. And this is certainly not just important for us, it's hugely important for all teacher training groups. Nearly all of them rely on school support in some way or other. And probably the best teacher training programme in the UK, the Cambridge History programme, actually Michael who told me all about it. One of the reasons I was so inspired by hearing about what they do is they tie the in-school mentor role so closely in with the training that their students are getting, and by doing that, they're reinforcing the training constantly through every experience the trainee has. The third sort of big theme is that trainees really benefit from ongoing support after their first year. And certainly we're not the only people to come up with this thought. If you look at the Carter Review that the government commissioned last year, or the work of the Professional Development Commission that they've been working for the DFE as well, this is really coming out now, that our model of having 1 year of training, followed by essentially an NQT year, which a lot of schools don't do very much additional training around, is wrong. We go from sort of being trained to not being trained with no time to in the second year, with no focus in the second year on how you can continue to improve your practice. And this obviously then blends into ongoing professional development throughout teachers' careers. And we know, both from the US and from the UK, that there is this question mark about whether teachers plateau relatively early in their careers in terms of how well they're doing. Some people say it's 5 years, some people say it's 3 years, but there does seem to be a fairly early plateau where teachers don't tend to improve very much after a certain point. And that's got to be around our focus on training, trying to cram all the training into right at the beginning of teachers' careers rather than smoothing it out more across their time in the profession. And when we talked to our participants and our ambassadors, they were very clear that they wanted ongoing support around teacher training in their second year. And on the programme at the moment, we do give participants ongoing support in the second year, but it focuses a lot around leadership and around coaching. And we don't do as much on teacher training. We sort of do that through our PGCE and our QTS in the first year. We don't focus as much on that in the second year. And it came through very strongly that wasn't what they were looking for. And in particular, they wanted more opportunity to observe great practice, especially for ones who were not in great schools, or not in great departments within good schools. They wanted more opportunities to observe diverse practice and outstanding practice. And they also wanted more opportunity to develop research methods. And on the standard PGCE, there isn't very much time, there isn't very much space that allows you the time to really look into teaching research methods as well. So those were the sort of big buckets, if you like. We did write a 250-page report on all this. It's quite hard to summarise that in 3 years. But I think those are the kind of key points that we took from this work. So what does then that mean for Teach First and what we do going forward? There are essentially three big changes that we're making as a result of this research. These changes won't affect the cohorts that are in school at the moment, the 2015 and 2016 cohorts. They will continue with the existing programme, which is a great programme. We don't want to mess around with them after they've already started it. This will apply from 2017 onwards, and it is linked to our new government contract that we were awarded earlier this summer to continue the Teach First programme for at least another 2 cohorts, so 2017 and 2018. And I know someone's going to ask me this, so I'm going to preempt it by saying this is less expensive than our existing programme. We are charging government 15% less than we were, assuming we meet our recruitment targets, than under the existing programme. So this looks more expensive, but actually it's cheaper. So the first thing we're doing is we're introducing a postgraduate diploma in education. We're moving away from the PGCE and towards this new qualification that we are currently developing with partner universities. It will be a single degree that we will work with all our partner universities on, and they will validate. So it will be one Teach First degree with those universities. And it will be spread over 2 years, and it will be worth 120 master's credits. Nearly all PGCs are worth 60 master's credits. So it will be worth twice as much, and it will have significantly more content in it. But because it's spread out, it gives us much more opportunity to sequence that content and smooth it out so that we're able to do more and stress out our participants out less. Obviously, because the Teach First programme relies on them teaching from September in their first year, that's a pretty tall order for people, and it's not easy. And cramming in too much essay writing and so on around that is challenging. So by spreading out the qualification, we're able to spread out the assessment. And also that enables us to focus on what we really want to focus on early on, and then build in more as we go through the programme. One of the things it allows us to do is integrate all of our training. So I said at the moment we have this kind of model where in the first year it's very teacher training focused. We do talk about leadership, it's very teacher training focused, and you do your PGC, you do your QTS. In the second year we do coaching, we do leadership work. We don't really talk so much about teacher training. We want to properly integrate those two themes across the participants' experience of the degree, and we also want to make sure that the leadership training that we do is relevant to participants' experience in the classroom as well. So it's got to be about leadership in a classroom, and then as they go through the programme, leadership in a school, and from that you can learn wide lessons about leadership. So really integrating those two sides of what Teach First has always been about. That's a big part of being able to do this. Really importantly, as I've been saying, it allows us to spread that content over the 2 years, giving participants more space to develop and the chance to continue to improve in their second year with that that's the focus on, particularly that focus on research methods. It also, all participants will have the chance to top up their 120 credits with an additional 60 credits in their third year, so you'll be able to top up to a master's degree. If you want to do that, that will not be a compulsory part of it, but it will be an option that everyone can convert to a master's in their third year. So it gives us that space. So the second change is kind of about how we want to use that space. So at the moment we have 6 weeks Summer Institute, we're moving to a 5-week Summer Institute, and it's going to be a much more focused experience for participants. The reason we're moving from 6 to 5 is partly because by the 6th week, everyone's absolutely exhausted. So there's limited opportunities for learning once people are that tired. But also because we wanted to take the days that we use during summer and spread them out more across the 2 years. So we're having more weekends during the course of the 2 years where participants will come back together for more comprehensive training experiences than we were able to give in the current programme in the first, once they've completed that summer institute. And we're going to reorder the curriculum so the summer institute will be really focused on what we found through the research are the real, what we call gatekeeper skills. So these are things that are not sufficient to be an outstanding teacher, but are necessary to be able to stand up in front of a class at the beginning of September and be able to hold your own and have the confidence to then start thinking about what it would take for you to become an outstanding teacher, because you're not constantly worrying about your basic skills in the classroom. And those are classroom management, particularly around, but not only around behaviour, assessment and planning. So we really want all of our participants to leave with real confidence that in all those 3 areas they are able to function in their class, in their school from the 1st of September. A lot of them already can, and we want to make sure everybody can, because we want to reduce the reliance on them having someone within their school who can pick up and support them if they're weak in those areas. And part of this, you can't really teach these things without opportunities to practice them. The very early summer institute when Teach First was very young, there was no opportunity to actually interact with children during summer institute. That's changed a lot over the last 15 years, and now participants in summer institute spend quite a lot of time in school, but not enough. So we want to up that again. We want to provide a lot more opportunities for participants to actually practice techniques in these areas that they're learning. If they're not in school, we want to do that through things like role play, through things like using artifacts like video. But ideally, we want them to do it in school. So every participant will now in some institutes spend two full weeks in school teaching alongside experienced teachers and applying what they're learning to their practice as they go through those 2 weeks. So it will be a much more practical experience for them to go through. Now this doesn't mean we're not going to be doing any theoretical content in Summer Institute. We will be doing theoretical content. It is still important for training teachers, even if you're going to focus later more on that, to still give people a framework and a grounding in some key theoretical constructs early on. We will focus quite a lot on cognitive science in those early days, and we'll try and make sure that we can interweave that experience of what they're learning theoretically as tightly as possible with then the practical experience they're having either through school or role play in their ongoing experiences. But we're clearing out a lot of stuff that's currently in the Summer Institute and moving it back later in the degree. So we really want to get that focus early on. And then as they go through the degree, they will pick up more and more theoretical content and have the opportunity to think more critically and reflect on what they're doing and their practice, because I have something to reflect and critique. And that will then inform the assessments of the modules as they go through the training. It also means in that second year we can really have a good focus on research methods to enable participants to get their own minds up around the various debates that we all have pedagogy and so forth. The final change, big change that we're making is, this is perhaps a little bit more internal to us, but it's really important, and I think probably does have applicability to other programs as well, is we're introducing a new participant development lead. At the moment, a participant has lots of people who support them. They have, as I said, 2 university tutors, they have an in-school mentor, they have somebody called a leadership development officer from Teach First. But all of those people give a little bit of support. No one's responsible for coordinating that experience. Nobody is the absolute key account holder, if you like, for that person. And under our new model, we wanted to create a much simpler support structure for participants that puts this person at the heart of their experience. So every participant that goes through our program will have one of these participant development leads who will be their main conduit for making their way through the program. That person will be responsible and accountable for the experience of that participant. And they will organise and coordinate all the other support that the participant receives. So for subject support, the university tutors will remain incredibly important to giving that support. That will be brought in using the support of the participant development lead, and crucially, the in-school mentor will also work closely with this role to make sure that they're giving the participants what they need. And I suppose that this slightly longer-term vision for where I really want to take us as a training provider is around this in-school mentor role. And I want us to play a sort of cross-sector role almost in turning the role of in-school mentor for a training program into something that has really high status within the profession, something you have to do to progress within the profession, and something that has real kudos, credibility and accreditation. It's so absolutely critical to getting training right, and at the moment it's not seen as being a really high status thing to be given in the school necessarily. So I really hope that by giving some good training to this role, maybe over time, thinking about how we can accredit that role, that we can really build the status of that. And we feel it's definitely going to add a huge amount of value to our program. And finally, we will look for them to be having a very high level of expertise and experience, both of teaching and developing teachers, usually in their school. So certainly not exclusive to this, but I expect a lot of people who hire for this role will be teachers. And we're looking for people who can bring that experience to make sure our participants have that great experience of practical learning and are able to incorporate the theory that they're learning on the program into their day-to-day practice. Quick plug, if any of you are interested in working with us more as this role, as I suspect a lot of people in here have a relevant experience, just get in touch with me on Twitter or email. My email is sfreedman@teachfirst.org.uk. You'll find me afterwards. We need to hire quite a lot of people who can support us in doing this, and we're going to need to find a lot of really great teachers to help us do that. So we are going to be actively recruiting from the autumn onwards for that. That's a little plug in. So that is essentially what we're doing. Hopefully, I explained a little bit about the research base we based all of that on. I have some time for questions, so if people have any, then I'm happy. There's one here.
Are you then scrapping the leadership development officer?
It will transition. So we have a number of leadership development officers who will continue to work with our current program, because that obviously got two cohorts of the current program working their way through. Yes, they will continue to work with us, and some of them will transition into this role. Others will continue to work with us to support participants in different ways. So we're not scrapping it, but we're moving them on towards this role over time, essentially.
Just to say, do you still do your primary program?
Yes, so this is the same for all three phases. I should have said that. So we do secondary, we do primary, and we do early years. So obviously within that there'll be a lot of phase-specific stuff, but the broad structure will be the same.
And you mentioned a university tutor.
Yes.
Do they come into your headquarters to train, or I'm just interested in how they do that, particularly for the primary sector?
The university tutors. So we have So we don't train them. They obviously have the knowledge and experience they've got to their university. We obviously work very closely with them, so we're designing a degree with them, and they construct the training with us.
And does it, I guess, does it happen in your, I know you've localised this, but
Yeah.
or does it happen in a base? Do they come in, or do they go to schools? Do they do a satellite model?
So we have a regional basis. We have 10 regional offices around the country, and most of the universities that we work with are local to that area, so they'll work at their university essentially, and our office will be near the university. So
I'm not really sure exactly how you go about this, but have you looked into the impact of the fact that many people won't finish their NQT year until after 3 years of teaching, whether that's on their promotional opportunities or...
So they will. So they'll still get QTS at the end of year 1. So that's really important. They get the degree at the end of year 2, but they'll get QTS at the end of year 1. And that will be assessed separately. That is a really important point. Yes. So you'll still get QTS, you'll still get a QT in the second year of the degree, so it shouldn't affect anything like that. It's just a degree takes 2 years.
What will Tim Lloyd, Chief Analyst at the DFE, first of all, thank you for saving money. Second, every penny helps. What would be your definition of success for this programme relative to its predecessor?
So we have some metrics.
Yep.
One, we'd like to see withdrawals from the programme significantly reduced, and they're already lower than those courses, but we'd like to cut them again. So that's definitely one metric. We also we're piloting this year using external assessment to look at the progress of pupils across a year's worth of participants. If we can get that working, that will obviously give us another metric that we can use to see, and then we can look at sort of the ongoing profiles of people who have been in the programme and what they go on to do.
That's good.
Sam, I work with a local teacher school system in West Midlands, school directors in particular, and the most common critique I hear from the school users of that is around the quality of the university tutorial support. I noticed that your proposal to do entirely necessary and upgrading of the school-based stuff, you're planning on trying to influence the university quality.
Yes, I mean we had a fairly tough selection process for choosing the universities that we're going to work with, and we're designing a new degree collectively, and we're working very closely with them on that. It's a much more partnership-based model than we have ever had in the past, where we're working very closely together. Up till 2012, we had nothing to do with teacher training. We didn't even, the DFE paid separately for the universities. We didn't do it at all. We've got much more engaged with it, and that's given us a chance to influence a lot more. But it works both ways. There's stuff they can bring to us, and there's stuff we can bring to them. I think the more practical training, a lot of them acknowledge that we're actually better at that now than they are, and they're learning a lot from seeing us doing that. I think some of the reflection and critical stuff, they're better than us, better than we are, and we'll learn from them. So we're trying to make it a real partnership and improve both of us in the process of doing it.
How do you negotiate between colleges which are very progressive, have a very progressive outlook, high grade, basically, and those that don't? How do you negotiate?
So I think this is about how we negotiate. If you didn't hear the question, colleges that might be more progressive. I think we do it by having essentially control over the degree, and by the participant experience through the participant development that we have. We want it to be based on evidence, and we will make sure that the degree that we produce and the training that these people have gone through is based on the evidence, and the universities will work with us in that.
Will participants still go back to some institutes in their first and second years? And how will it affect the role of associate tutors as well?
So, first question, yes, they will still come back for there'll be 4 weeks regional, 1 week national, and that will be a week where people in their second year come back for that week as well. Continue. Associate tutors, we haven't made a decision on. They'll provide huge amounts of value at the moment. We're still working out how best to use them in this.
how is the third year ambassador developed?
As a third year ambassador?
The third year and ambassador models.
Yeah. A minute there. So yes, we're developing pathways at the moment. This is something that obviously Singapore and a lot of other countries do at a national level. We're trying to do it at a teach first level, developing pathways for people who've been through the programme. So if they want to stay in the schools, then there's a kind of school classroom leadership pathway where we'll continue to develop training up to the point eventually we'll have a decent cohort of teachers. If you want to go and set up a charity, there's a pathway for that. If you want to go into policy and sort of grammar schools, there's a pathway for that. So we're essentially constructing a pathway model for continuing this work.
And they're coming in 2017.
No, they've already come in. We're just developing them out. We're just growing them. We kind of piloted it last year. We're taking it forward again this year. This is the last question.
What's assessment going to look like?
That is something we're working on at the moment. We're telling you what it should look like. Because we've got a new degree here, we've got a lot of options. We can do a very essay-based assessment. We can try and do some other types of assessment. It's something we're still working on with the universities, and I hope other people who can advise us on this as well. On that note, I'm going to stop. So thank you very much.